Happy Wednesday. You know what that means? It's new comic book day. But before I get into some of this week's hottest new titles, be sure to hit that subscribe button and bell notification so you don't miss any episodes or weekly updates. Well, once again, happy Wednesday. I am so excited to go over some of these new books with you. You can shop all of these comics and more at the link down in the description. This week has been a lot lighter than some previous weeks. Normally at the beginning of the month, the publishers don't put out as many new titles or just as many of the big running titles that they are currently publishing. So I think the big book from Marvel this week was Dark Ages, which I'm currently not reading, from Tom Taylor. I do have one book from Marvel this week, which is Eternals Celestia. If you're not really familiar with Eternals or the lore kind of surrounding the Eternals and the Celestials, this is not a great jumping on point. It is very dense and can be difficult to access, but if you are reading the current Eternals run from Kieran Gillian, this is written by Kieran Gillian, and it is a big tie-in with some big reveals and setting up some stuff that I'm sure is going to come up later on in the next story arc for the Eternals main run. So basically, in this story, we're following Ajak and Makari as they go on a pilgrimage to go look at the body that Avengers have turned into their headquarters that was once a Celestial. Now, Ajak and Makari are two different characters when it comes to the Eternals, right? Ajak is a priest of the Celestials, as is Makari, but they're from two different schools of thought, right? Makari believes in like the new way of doing things and not really leaning back on the way that Celestials used to do stuff. She spoke to a different Celestial and received her kind of visions and her covenant and everything from a different Celestial than Ajak did, whereas Ajak very much so leans on the way that they did it, 4 billion years ago. But this book, I really enjoyed this read. The artwork from Kizama was just it was so beautiful. I mean, they just really went for it. When you read an Eternals book, you really want some crazy, colorful, and beautiful artwork. And we got that 110% from this book. I really enjoyed the artwork. Every page was just so much detail, so many captivating things, such a beautiful use of color and lines, and the pencil work was so dynamic and just eye-catching. It was a really great read just for the art alone, and the story, of course, is kind of a big build-up to something I'm sure is going to come up later on. The Eternals kind of learned what their true purpose is in the last story arc of the Eternals run, and this is kind of adding to what they've learned and kind of adding in a new element of what they're going to do with this new knowledge. Yeah, if you're a fan of Eternals, if you're reading the current Eternals run, definitely pick up Eternals Celestia today. So up next, I'm going to talk about some indie comics, specifically Firepower from Robert Kirkman and Chris Samney over at Image Comics. So Firepower has been a really great series. If you're not reading it, I highly recommend you do. And if you're, this is perfect too. If you're not reading it, if you don't know why you should. If you're a fan of Iron Fist, you'll really dig this story because it's very similar to an Iron Fist type story. Or if you're a fan of Robert Kirkman, like The Walking Dead, Invincible, this is a great mix of kind of superhero-y because there are superpowers and ninjas and things like that, but also a really grounded story about a family and their relationships with one another and their relationships with those outside of their family. They've really stepped up the action across this issue and in the previous issues and stuff. We've been kind of building up to the Scorched Earth clan and them possibly going off against the Flaming Fist, because the Flaming Fists were, of course, taken over by those snakes. So it's been building up to that action. We kind of get it all coming to a head here, at least beginning to, and it leads to a very big reveal at the end that I'm not going to spoil because it's pretty shocking, and I'm definitely excited for the next issue to see kind of what happens next. Kirkman has been doing an absolutely fantastic job with this book. I really enjoy the parts where we get to examine the relationship between Owen and his family, between Owen and his wife, between Owen and his ex-girlfriend. It's just, you get to examine all these relationships and kind of see how they affect and mold the characters. And, Kirkman does a great job with that. The dialogue runs really smoothly, and, Chris Samney's art really needs no introduction. Next for Image Comics was absolutely the book I was probably most excited for this week, from Rick Remender, A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. This book was really good. I'm a big fan of crime comics. This one, absolutely incredible. I am super stoked for this series. Remender is an amazing writer and really does a great job with this. And then the artwork from Andre Arujo, excuse my pronunciation, was absolutely incredible. This was a really quick, easy read. It sets up what I think is going to be an awesome story. I definitely recommend checking it out. There was a lot of layers to it and some foreshadowing things and just like a big reveal at the end. But essentially, it's just following this guy who kind of stumbled across a very gruesome murder, and he possibly ran into the murderer right before he got there when he was stopping at a gas station. So it's really good. I'm definitely excited to see what they do with this story. I'm definitely excited to see where it goes. This is my pick of the week, hands down, is A Righteous Thirst for Vengeance. The artwork was incredible. It was absolutely beautiful, as you can see now through these panels I'm showing you. I definitely recommend picking this one up. I still have copies available at GTX Comics. I definitely recommend giving this a read if you're looking for a really great indie comic book or a really great starting point for what I think is going to be an incredible series. So last up for indie comics is The Me You Love in the Dark, issue number 3 from Scotty Young and Jorge Corona. So this has been a pretty fun read. It's a short miniseries. I think it's only going to be 5 issues, so we're just over the halfway mark. It does look like from the preview at the end of this issue that things are kind of going to come to the head in the next one. But it's been an interesting read. It's definitely a different take on horror than what I'm traditionally used for. I know that horror traditionally, of course, has a very deep connection to like romance stories and kind of like the gothic romance horror take on things. So it's an interesting take on that and something that you don't really see in comics very often. So I do appreciate it for that. The artwork, of course, is incredible. Corona and Young have worked together on other books like Middle West, which is just an incredible read if you haven't checked that one out. But yeah, I enjoyed it. It's a very romantic issue in particular to the other two, where it was kind of what's happening, what's building up to here. This one was very much focusing on the relationship between the protagonist and the, spirit ghost that she lives with. But I enjoyed it. It was a good read. It was kind of a lull in the story, but definitely gives you some basis and some building up to things that are coming later on. So it was a good read. If you're not reading The Me You Love in the Dark, I definitely recommend checking it out from Image Comics, but the artwork is incredible and the storyline has been pretty good so far. And up last, we have DC Comics. I only had one book from DC this week, and that is Justice League Infiniti, issue number 4. So needless to say, this cover blew a lot of people away when I posted it online during the unboxing. And yes, it is exactly what it looks like. Darkseid and Wonder Woman have a romantic entanglement in this issue, and that sounds super crazy, but it is a multiverse storyline. I do got to preface with that. This whole Justice League Infiniti thing has been very steeped in multiverse, and this issue in particular focuses on what happened to Wonder Woman after she went missing from the Watchtower. Wonder Woman basically comes to on a dead and barren apocalypse. Basically the only person alive in the universe besides her at this moment is Darkseid, and it turns out in this particular timeline, in this particular multiverse, Darkseid and Wonder Woman fell in love when basically she was sent there by Earth to be like an ambassador to Apocalypse. And he fell in love with her because she's, the heart of a pacifist and the body of a warrior. And it's an interesting story, and it really draws back, if you're a fan of the Justice League animated series or Justice League Unlimited animated series, it pulls a lot from the series in terms of, her relationship, Wonder Woman's relationship to her father in the cartoon, which is Hades, and they actually draw that in and they reference a lot of that. So it was nice because that's actually one of my favorite story arcs from the animated series, were those episodes of Diana returning to Themyscira and kind of learning the truth that her father is Hades and her mother is, Apollonia still, but that they formed her together, and that whole storyline and stuff with Faust. Like I said, if you're familiar with the animated Justice League series, that was one of my favorite story arcs, and they really draw on that and kind of explore how that affected Wonder Woman in this issue, which was a lot of fun, and I really enjoyed it. The artwork in this series has been great. I was a big fan, like I said, of those animated Justice League series, both of them. So if you're a fan of those, this really ties a lot of those things together and really gives us a deeper exploration into how that affected Wonder Woman and how many of these things have affected Wonder Woman over time. So it's definitely a great read. This series has been a lot of fun, and I definitely recommend checking it out. Well, that is it for this new comic book day. Thank you so much for checking in on another episode. Like I said, you can shop all of these comics and many more at the link down in the description, but let me know in the comments what you're picking up this Wednesday. What are you looking forward to reading? Is there anything that you think is a really good series that I should jump in on? Let me know. I'd love to hear from you. But once again, thank you so much. Be sure to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you later.